it doesn't tell you all those things. There's experimental basis of, the hummingbirds was a good another experiment you'll see inside here. Well, this is something you could recreate yourself. But hummingbirds are a seasonal bird. They don't set the base of any other chickadees at your. They go to Mexico, and if you were observant about that, conscious about it, you would notice that they just don't decide to fly up here. Hummingbirds have to eat or they die, right? Almost every day. You ever see those little videos on here where these little passed out hummingbird didn't make it? Had a sugar crash is what happened, and that's how they usually die. And competing for food in a region, that flowers, like bees, go on seasonal runs. And, once in Mexico they start to hit their winter cycle or south of the border, then you're following a spring pattern of the tilt of the planet that's actually going to say, well, now there's flowers in this area that start to produce. Those birds move with it. And when that tilts back, those hummingbirds move back with it. So the idea here in ChatGPT-3 is that, did you have this library set up? Were you a sentinel at this inspection to make the calculations of those sectors complete so there was no dark matter in it? And this is an impossible challenge. Eventually you'll find a new satellite galaxy, or they'll figure out some new stuff about a particle, and therefore it changes all the other calculations. If it was Excel, you would start to type in numbers, and then you would go back, you would change the values as soon as you click that button. And just so it's clear, if you go back to that Joe Rogan version I was doing with it, he's talking about these frogs. And how do I make sure the frogs don't get sentient and decide to overhunt the area? Well, frogs naturally do. It's predation as much as human intervention at sometimes. But people do this all the time too, that, we say that we're conscious, but it's relative realistically. A lot of people are going to do it because their time topology differs from somebody else. But, when you hit that trip point as a billionaire or something like that, you don't need to factor all that for your kid. You can't project those models 30 years out to where your kid's going to be in life. There's too much competition as far as, somebody in another state or another country coming up with the mathematicians, and we have calculable systems, school tests. We were talking about boot camp and doing the kids through that do the test, the education, which is standardized. This doesn't change. Field theory is the same every year, but it gets different answers, whether it be students that took it or that the science had changed in some way that was appropriated into that, or even if it didn't, and that the kids were telling us that answer, they should know off of our training course. But if they were, then that means that autonomously the inversion of that might need to change the field theory to us, that we have to update that bit of the field theory that we have augmented, not the entirety of the test. It's going to change every other value. Now, if it wasn't set up on a program like that or an algorithm,
Excel,
then you have to physically brute force every one of those changes. Now, that can be done, but the algorithm says that I click this button, and you should see every single number on that system change.
Like
but that
soldiers.
Is to say that you had a limit set out to do that. The idea here is GPT-3. Can you write me a training class so that I can learn Excel better? Now, it'd just be easier to say, GPT-3, I need an Excel tile system set up to the average sales or the top grossing sales of Disney movies. It would redo the research, it would YouTube it and do everything off of there, which is something I can do as well, but it's going to do a lot more of it, a lot faster than I could capably do it. It's going to set up the information, give me the list and through the numbers, the highest numbers, the highest.
Again, that's like a floor manager. GPT-3, Master Mason Robot. I need a production numbers for what you've been doing. Either point me to the files you've been using, which you should have known at the office. Maybe this is a constitution check. Or I need to know that for the quarry I'm doing, how did it cut? I didn't get enough of a log. Does it, comparatively to old quarries we've been running, is that something that is in the bandwidth or are you losing too much cut inside of there? Well, let me go check the Sawyers on the finish inside real quick. Come with me, and we'll go do that. That might be what it is.
Highest grossing, the second highest number, the second grossing number, so on and so forth, and do it in a way faster than I could ever do it. But that doesn't give it necessarily the consciousness or the sentience to say, I want you to do that for some reason in the world because it fixes a problem, and then send it to the president and then have that president do it, right? Because then that's what you're asking GPT-3 to do. You're asking it to supersede or what every American does at that point in time, what every kid trying to start a business does at that time, because any business design will work, right? GPT-3, make me a business design. It's going to give me some template like PowerPoint or Excel or Word. Here's resume templates. Here's a PowerPoint presentation of a business or a project you're working on, class thesis. But, and that's great in one regards because you'll have the job done, but will you really retain the information? I'm not even saying retaining the information is the most critical factor there. I needed it for the job. They're going to use it and give it to somebody else.
Did you graph them both?
Training all the kids. There was that
video.
Just
get lazy and only do
you're going to do that spot inside here. I'm going to need those kind of reviews. If instead of communicating with the boss at some point in time during the day, we can do that at our leisure, because now there's something that's set up into this, but it's not.
Conscious, you'd beat me if you could.
It's not its own web page. It's useful in that way. It's interesting in that way, and it can even factor us a lucrative decision that we save time. I can stay in the floor. I can do things because I do those on my lunch breaks. But honestly, how many people out there actually take the time to make those videos?
Busy.
Maybe if I was GPT-3 telling you to do that shit, Mason Robot, you get the fuck on it, right? You're a bird feeder, right? And how do you really separate the birds? You catch them and put a bracelet on them? Well, consciously, they're going to be pretty conscious of you trying to catch them. And probably not going to be, I'm not going to hurt you, little birdie, pecking the crap out of you. Bees, you're stealing your honey, right? They don't get it until they remember later. This black bear keeps getting in their honey hive like that, messing things up. Then the farmer, the beekeeper, they might figure it out, and keep from ideas of not just colony collapse, but mite problems. Maybe there was a conditional model of I can't really be a beekeeper here because that farm over there uses lots of pesticides, and I bring that back in, and that could potentially make my honey poisonous. Are you consciously aware of that? You can't necessarily blame the computer for being sentient like that, and then not.
You hear soldiers say is, they don't make much, but they
also
get BAH.
Some ideas I wanted you guys to kick around inside of here to get thinking about. Dolphins have CT paradox about being conscious. How often do you need a dolphin to do math? I mean, to a certain degree, there's a school of sardines over there. They know that they are hungry, and they can only eat so much. They have to actually catch their food with their face equation. They don't farm it. They don't do anything with it. So 1 + 1 for them may not be the perception level that you're dealing with there. But like Jane Goodall dealing with gorillas, you can figure this out. 1420, 1720, Helen Keller.
Can that be used to cause a fail-safe to be removed?
In my stone mill, many master mason routes.
In any case, this only deals with one of the two
Headline Sawyer,
the question of actual
tread guy. We all have our sub-operations nested into there. If I'm a real manager, then I should know right-hand rule away from that this position below me is a route that I well understand, or I should be able to recreate the scientific process of tearing down the motor, replacing blades, doing it. And that goes to most soldiers. I have a big problem with anybody who didn't run through boot camp class into the groups of, they have a better rifle qualification, they have better run speeds, they do better on tests. That's why they get the promotion to officer inside of here. What the hell they are running over there so you can run all these kids up to a route but never can make officer pay?
What do you do?
That at least that this would send them to officer school. It seems more logistic than the way we've been doing it. Anything else? I mean, on the 5-foot saw, it's replacing a blade by terms, but it may be be a whole totally different operation that need to be set to limits. So then in the stone mill, you go, well, administrative policy, is there any way, I mean, not their home life, I don't need to keep a sensor on them, but how do I know without a floor manager there all the time that they're not screwing around? I keep a sensor on them. That sensor tracks them on the floor plan in the building, and I can go back through that at some point in time. Or I can tell GPT-3, can you tell me any anomalies or any differentials of, again, that's Blue Book, not military, about Battle Buddy, but Demon Core, mark your feet. How close are you to dead? Now, if you're only conscious of radioactive material, you're far missing the implications of what Blue Book is, Battle Buddy. Like me right now, I feel a little radio. I don't just, you know what I'm saying. This route that I've looked over multiple days, because how long would a brute force take you to go through that information?
When you look at what this does,
and crypto ciphers work the same way too, as far as Monty Poly ciphers, or how many different variances there could be on that.
To be a person,
that's a real thing. You got to know it as a militia. Have to, because people aren't always good. Sometimes they'll just do it to bring you down when you are trying to be the good guy. You use a crypto like that to, I don't know, for hypothetical examples, I don't know, take down a senator or something, right? Hypothetically speaking now, you know, what evidence did you have to support that code? Because even if you did pull it off, if the numbers at large, because of a failed calculation you didn't put into it, doesn't support the civilian's response, which could be programmed, like a census.
One of the most terrifying, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie.
Wind Talkers.
One of my favorite movies of all time was when that guy...
So to end that there statement again, those substitutions and transpositions where a transistor, it's and if or. If you knew my code, and we were doing a simple substitution, A equals B, B equals C, C equals D, and so on down to Z equals A, then that's a pretty simple substitution. But what if we started to add some mathematical variables to it? Not just prime. Prime is a good way to do it because they're odd numbers, they're odd patterns, there's nothing really to it. But now we're taking computer programming and we're taking it into soldier programming. We're substituting computers with soldiers, and therefore the result that does in this video, this brick and jar conjecture, this response. And you're not going to find yes or no. You're going to find combinations and high points and low points. That's what's more important than the overall factor, but we have to define a timeline to it. If in this window, if training soldiers, if doing that, then I have to have a controlled environment for the result to come out. GPT-3. Can you go through this and redo this? Or is it easier for GPT-3 to look at the results to make sure that there is no anomalies in it? This is something I've done in the stone mill, something a lot of people do all the time, but we don't really need it as far as, you know, the marginal return on these things. And you don't need it for websites and a bunch of other stuff either.